welcome to Elise's Knitting Corner. Have you always wanted to learn to knit but don't know where to start? You're in the right place. Whether you've never picked up a pair of knitting needles before or you're just looking for a little guidance, I'll be here to help you every step of the way. Think of it this as your own little knitting school, where we'll learn together at a relaxed and enjoyable pace. I'll guide you patiently through the basics, including different types of yarn, knitting needles, how to cast on stitches, and so much more. For our first few lessons, each video will follow a simple format. I'll begin by sharing some helpful information about the topic. Then we'll work through a step-by-step tutorial together. And finally, I will give you a preview of what we'll be learning in the next lesson. In today's lesson, we'll look at 3 different types of yarn and knitting needles so that you will know what you'll need to get started. And then we'll move on to our very first knitting technique, which is casting on your stitches. So let's start. The very first knitting yarn that I want to show you is a 4-ply yarn. 4-ply is very thin and it's used for knitting, especially for babies. Now on the label you'll see we'll need at least a 3 millimeter, between a 3 millimeter and a 3.5 millimeter knitting needle. So in this case we're going to use a 3.25 knitting needle. Then we have this yarn, which is a double knit yarn, and for a double knit it's a little thicker than the 4-ply. For the double knit yarn we'll need a knitting needle between 3.75 and 4.5 millimeter. In this case, we are going to use a 4 millimeter knitting needle. Then there is another bigger, thicker kind of yarn, which is a chunky. You can see if you look at this, it is much thicker, and for that we need a much thicker needle. In this case we are going to use a 6 millimeter needle. So grab your yarn and knitting needles, get comfortable, and let's begin this exciting knitting journey. So for this knitting experience we're going to use this yarn from Charity, and it's a double knit. And as I told you, we're going to use a 4 millimeter knitting needle. But I must also tell you that we don't only get straight knitting needles. We also have this kind of needle, which is called a circular needle. I'll explain to you as we go on into next lessons how we're going to use that. So first, to start off, we are going to make a loop. This is how I make my loop. And I keep my yarn between my fingers. I wrap it around 2 fingers and over the first thread. Then I insert my needle underneath the first thread here and twist it and pull the top thread through, and there I have my loop. But now we'll see that the loop is a bit too big. So how do I make it smaller? And I just gently tag on this, on the long tail, gently tag on it to make my loop smaller. And there we have a loop where we can insert our needle. So now you are ready for the very first step. So this is how I keep my needle. And the first stitch, this is what we're going to do. We're going to insert the needle between the two threads. Let me show you if I turn it. Can you see there? Right, I insert it. I wrap my yarn around the bottom needle. Then I pull up a loop and place it on my left hand needle. Let's do it again. I insert my needle, my right hand needle, into the first stitch. I wrap it around the needle, and then I twist this right hand needle to pull up a loop and place it on my left hand needle. And there you have 1, 2, 3 stitches. So let's go again once more. We insert, we wrap around, we pull a loop through and place it on my left needle. So let's do it again. We insert, we wrap around, we pull through and put it on my left hand needle. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So let's just add 5 more stitches, and I'll do it slowly with you. You put in, insert, wrap around, pull through, and over there. You insert, wrap around, pull the loop through, put it on my left hand needle. And now you can continue like that until you have 10 stitches. There you have 10 stitches and ready to start your first knitting row. Now remember, you have to cast on like we just did, because my cast on is actually my first row of my knitting. Okay, so let's see how we're going to do our knitting. Now, there are different ways of knitting, right? This is the way that I am used to. This is the way that I was taught when I was a young girl, still in school. So this is how I'm going to teach you. So we are going to start, and remember, take your long tail. Now knitting, the stitch is almost like casting on like we did, but there's just one twist, and I'll show you now. So you're going to insert once again in the first stitch. You're going to wrap the yarn around the bottom needle to pull up a loop, but this time you're going to put it over onto your right hand needle. Again, you're going to insert, you're going to wrap around, pull through, and put it over on your right hand needle. Once more, insert, wrap around, pull through, and put it over. Let's do once more, slowly. Insert, wrap around, pull through, and put it on your right hand needle. Make sure that you don't your knitting is not too tight. Otherwise, you are really going to struggle to get to insert this needle. So next stitch, insert, wrap around, pull through, and put it on the needle. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches here. You go ahead. So there you have, you came to the end of the row, no stitches on your left needle, but all the stitches on the right needle, and that is perfect. That's what we want. Make sure that your knitting not twisted, okay? So make sure it's all the stitches are lying in this direction. So now we need to start with our next row. So you have to take the needle with the stitches, put it over on your left side, and the needle without the stitches will be on in your right hand. Here you have two threads running down here, a short tail and a long tail. So make sure that you use your long tail and not the short tail. Just keep the short tail down there for a while to start your first stitch. So we're going to do exactly the same thing like we did in the first row. We insert, we wrap around, we pull through and over onto the right hand. Insert, wrap around, pull through and over onto your right hand. You insert, wrap around, pull through and onto the right hand. And this is how you continue till you reach the last stitch. So here you are at the end of your second row. And how do you count your rows? Do you see all these bubbles here? This is one row. And if you turn your work over, you'll see there's another row of bubbles there that represent another row. So you have just finished 2 rows. So what I'm going to ask you now is to continue this way until you knitted 10 rows. Next time, I'll show you how to knit your purl stitch. So this is our lesson for next week. I want to just thank you so much for knitting along with me today. If you enjoyed this lesson, please like this video and subscribe to Elise's Knitting Corner so you don't miss the next lesson. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, happy knitting!